What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Turn the Jets podcast. I'm your host, Will Parkinson, at WillPod11 on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Will Parkinson NFL on YouTube, joined by YouTube's finest, Jets fans' finest, Yankee fan, ESPN, Mad Dog Radio. Uh, Unfortunately, I rep the Cortland shirt today strictly for Jake. We are the reigning national champs. Jake Asman, been on a million times, been on your show a million times. How we doing? Are you enjoying the beginning here of first week of summer?
I enjoy summer, Will, and thanks for having me, of course. But I feel like last year almost, where it's like as excited as I am for summer and all that comes with it, I'm just ready for football season, man. So I don't want to rush away summer, but at the same time, I can't wait till we get to week one, Jets Niners on Monday night, and we get things going for real.
Yeah, no, I've seen some bad summer takes on the timeline this week. You are back in New York for summer, which is awesome. Full time. Obviously, for those who don't know, Jake was in a friend of in Houston for a long time and is now back. So we're happy to have you back. I want to start quickly. We will get into the Jets. We're coming off a 2-game Subway series that obviously, if you're a Yankee fan, not ideal. If you're a Mets fan, things are rolling on. Quickly get this out of the way. Any panic level with the way the Yankees are playing right now? Or are you kind of like, hey, it's June and like we've seen this happen before?
Well, as bad as they have played, because the Orioles have played just as bad since they took 2 out of 3 at the stadium, they haven't really lost any ground. So that's the positive. But, I mean, you look at this Yankees team right now, Will, outside the first 3 guys, they can't hit. Whether it's guys who are hurt, like Stanton or Rizzo, or guys who are just terrible, like DJ LeMahieu and Gleyber Torres, they can't hit. Like J.D. Davis is batting cleanup for the Yankees last night. Let's call it for what it is. J.D. Davis wasn't good enough to play for the Oakland A's. Like they have major issues with their lineup right now until they get some of these guys back or they make a move or two to get a bat. I think they need another reliever. The pitching, I think, has hit a bit of a rut, coming back down to earth a little bit. So, look, they're going to be a playoff team. They're still one of the better teams in baseball. If you're going to say the Yankees are frauds, then the Orioles are frauds too, because they haven't won a game since they took 2 out of 3 from the Yankees. But they didn't look good these last couple games. There's no doubt. And the Mets are really hot. They've been the best team in June, so credit to them. The Grimace Mets are undefeated. It feels like basically. So, it is what it is. I'm not worried just yet because I think what's positive, if you want to spin it this way, is you rather be exposed now than in October. So there's time for the Yankees to make moves to address the issues they have and then go from there by the trade deadline.
Yeah, look, I think the Yankees all year have been really good pitching from guys that, kind of have regressed a little bit. The last, they were without Garrett Cole, and Cole obviously got rushed back. I'm not sure what happened the other night. And then it's been Soto, Judge, and Stanton and Volpe all year. And Stanton's hurt. Soto hasn't hit as well the last 2 weeks since the forearm. Volpe's cooled off a little. And it's kind of a one-man lineup that's getting outpitched. And this is what happens. I would DFA DJ LeMahieu last year. I would have gotten rid of him. I would have not brought Rizzo back. There's a lot of weird stuff with that. Safe to say they're going to be making some moves because they're the Yankees and they'll figure it out. But, good time to obviously be a Mets fan. The other thing I want to talk about, and then we will get to some Jet stuff, I promise. Our two teams made a trade for the first time since the 90s. I think the trade makes sense for the Knicks because Bridges was always like the guy that it felt like they wanted, the Nova Knicks, the whole 9 yards. He's a good, fit in terms of durability, defense, 3-point shooting, all that stuff. And it's not that it's a bad trade for the Knicks. I just think it's an amazing trade for the Nets on a guy who was really good when he came over a year and a half ago. And then last year, he's not a number one. And the Nets are kind of in disarray. And credit to them for actually realizing they aren't good and saying, we're going to get a bunch of unprotected picks. And everyone's telling me, it's 2031. That's not true. They also got back their 25 and 26 first round picks. They're going to aggressively tank. They have 3 first rounders next year. The draft's actually supposed to be good next year. What'd you make of the trade? Obviously, you are a way bigger Knicks fan, and then I probably am a Nets fan. Although I know got the Nets jersey behind me. But what do you make of the trade? And how excited are you? I guess to have the band back together. You got Ryan Arcidiacono's good. The final Infinity Stone.
Yeah, where's Chris Jenkins at too? Got to add him to the Nova Knicks. I mean, look, I'm surprised because I just didn't think the Nets and Knicks would make a deal of this magnitude. That being said, he's the perfect fit for what the Knicks needed. A guy who is the ultimate wing defender, 3-and-D guy, fits perfectly with the chemistry of this team. And did you give up a lot to get him? You did, but look at his contract for the next 2 years. He's a bargain, right? I mean, Jalen Brunson and Mikal Bridges combined is less than what Bradley Beal is making in one season now with the Phoenix Suns. So the Knicks, for this window they have, they're going for it. Like, I don't care about the picks in 2031. Who cares? You're all in the win. Right now, you have Brunson in his prime, Randall in his prime. You bring back OG in his prime. So you're going for it. You look at the Knicks last year, and they were the 2 seed despite all the injuries, but they have a gap to close with Boston. And I don't know if they're better than the Celtics, but there's a reason why for the last 6 years in the NBA, 6 different winners have won an NBA championship, 6 different teams. So it's hard to repeat. So if you're the Knicks, you're going for it. You have this team that plays really well, chemistry-wise, really good defensively. And Bridges is not a number 1. He's not a number 2, probably, but on the Knicks is a 3 or 4. I mean, you look at the depth of the Knicks. Josh Hart was playing 48 minutes a night in the playoffs. He might be coming off your bench right now if you're listing your starting lineup. So they are really deep. We'll see if they can keep Isaiah Hartenstein. But, for the most part, I love the movement from a Nets standpoint. Look, you weren't going to be good with Bridges or without him. So as long as you could stomach maybe helping the Knicks get to an NBA Finals, you got a lot of picks, and that's exactly what they needed to do because they weren't going anywhere. They went for it. It didn't work. It's not all, Brooklyn's fault with the debacle that was everything that happened with Kyrie, Harden, and Durant. But this was the right move for them. I just didn't think they would do it because do they really want to be, helping the New York Knicks win? But, once you got past that, I think it's one of those trades that is a win-win for both sides.
Yeah, look, the Nets have 13 first rounders, 9 seconds, and max cap space over the next 5 years. If you're a GM, I'm not sure Sean Marks is the guy to do it. I would have just gone, if I was the Nets right now, I would Godfather offer Bob Myers whatever money to get him off ESPN and say, buddy, you built one dynasty with a ton of picks and cap space. Come do it for us. Live in New York. You can do your part-time ESPN gig during the finals if you want to for a couple years. Again, none of this will happen. I'm just saying, if I was them, it's better than trading 8 first-round picks for Trae Young for either team. Now let's get to the point of this is a Jets podcast. Obviously, there's not been a lot of Jets news, right? I mean, outside of Tay Hayes getting arrested for weed in 2024, there's not been much. That said,
you want to freak out over Aaron Rodgers missing
I was going to say
practices 3 weeks later, Will?
Yeah,
doing that on the show?
Yeah, so I don't want to talk a lot about where Rodgers is and the discourse around it. I will say the one thing that I think has been the most difficult to stomach of this, and this is the only time we will discuss this during the next 10, 15 minutes, is there's been a lot of, love Julian Edelman. Brady would never do this, X, Y, Z. Brady missed 2 weeks of training camp 2 years ago. A little different, way worse. But, again, I understand why guys, like Rodgers puts himself in a situation all the time to be loved or to be hated. That's part of his aura. He loves that. It's part of his persona, the whole thing, right? So I get all of that. I don't know why it's still a trending topic 2 weeks later. I think that's more of I know there's not a lot going on, but I feel like there's other stuff to talk about. Tua and Dak and Jordan Love, all these guys with contract extensions, which actually are hugely important. We've seen some other extensions that maybe agree with, maybe don't, things like that. There's potential Brandon Ayuk stuff there. I just felt like it was just picking at straws that it's still leading the worldwide leader in sports' #1 morning show. I guess, what do you make of just kind of what's the best word here? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the right word. You're better at this than me, but it just feels odd that we're still people are still discussing this as a front topic on every sports show in America right now.
Well, it's really the perfect storm, right? You have an athlete in Aaron Rodgers who, whether you love him or hate him, you have an opinion on him. He's very polarizing. He's a lightning rod for conversation. And then you have the Jets, and very similar to some other New York teams that have a history of losing, there's that LOL Jets, no matter what, they can't get out of their own way, and it's easy to pick on them. You combine these two forces, you throw in the fact it's June, and there's really not much going on, and then you have Rodgers missing these 2 days of minicamp becoming the biggest story that 2 weeks after the fact, First Take on ESPN is still doing topics on it because they have nothing else to discuss football-wise. So it really is the perfect storm. And so much of it is politically driven and agenda driven because people do not like Aaron Rodgers' outspoken opinions on COVID or the fact that he endorses a third party candidate in the presidential race. That's where so much of it stems back to. There are things you can criticize Aaron Rodgers for. And I'll tell you what, if he doesn't play well and the Jets don't play well, they deserve criticism. They got to win this year. But somehow making Rodgers missing 2 days of padless practices in June when he had given the Jets advance notice and he had been to the other 10 OTA practices before this and had been at everything for the last 2 years and had clearly shown a commitment to the Jets, whether it be taking the largest pay cut in professional sports history, flying across country multiple times to be with the team, being voted the Dennis Bird Award winner for most inspirational. The laundry list of things any real Jet fan that follows the team knows Rodgers has done to basically prove his commitment to the team. That won't get brought up because it doesn't fit the narrative, and it's just very annoying. But it's not surprising because once again, you combine LOL Jets with Aaron Rodgers, being the lightning rod that he is, and you get a story that's not a story being made into a story now 2.5 weeks later.
Yeah, look, I think this is the time of year of kind of optimism usually with teams, right? You're kind of in that you start to, hey, with sack total over unders. I know Joe and Connor did a whole thing on that, or you do the win game, you do all these different things. Where are you at in terms of your realistic after 3 or 4 old fashions, not even in a mild mannered mood, just relaxing on the couch on a Friday or at a bar on a Friday? Where are you at with win total expectations? I'm personally in the 10 to 12, depending on health of Aaron Rodgers, is really where this roster should be. Are you in the same boat? Are you higher? Are you lower? We've seen different things. Mike Florio goes on and says the Jets are one of the 7 worst teams in football. You have other people like PFF rating the Jets as the best roster and second best roster in the NFL. So where do you shake out in this whole? Are the Jets really good? Are they overrated? Like where are you kind of sitting June 27th, 9:30 in the morning?
I think they're going to win the AFC East. I'll tell you that. Right now I have the Jets at 12 wins. I think 11, depending on who the wins are against, might be enough, like last year it was, to win that division. Look, they won 7 the last 2 years, with by far, like you can't emphasize this enough because people didn't see it like we did. By far, the worst quarterback play in the league the last 2 years, especially last year. Like it was historically bad last year. I mean, Zach Wilson, we can confidently say, is only better than Tim Boyle in football right now. Like that's it. Like the Jets somehow found a way to play a quarterback that is worse than Zach Wilson for 2 games last year in Boyle. So if you just look at the roster, the fact that they're going to play with more leads, the fact that they have a legitimate backup in Tyrod Taylor, if God forbid Rodgers suffers a conventional quarterback injury. Obviously, if he's done for the year 4 plays in, you're screwed no matter who your backup is, because Tyrod will be exposed to that point. But if Rodgers sprains an ankle and has to play 3 games, you can conceivably go 2-1 over that stretch with this roster and Tyrod being a solid pro that he is. They have a backup plan at left tackle for Tyron Smith with Olu Fashanu. They have a legit right tackle in Morgan Moses. They added a number 2 wide receiver in Mike Williams. They back him up with Malachi Corley. They have answers to a lot of their issues they faced a year ago. So if they won 7 games with a more difficult schedule the last 2 years, why wouldn't I expect them to at least be a 10 or 11 win team if they just get, let's say, conventional help from Rodgers? I happen to think he's going to play like a top 10 quarterback, which is why I'd boost him to 12, and I think they're going to win the division. But at the bare minimum, this should be at least a 10 or 11 win team. And if it goes right with some health, and maybe Rodgers is a lot closer to what he was in 20 and 21 than, the unknown he is right now, they can win more than that. But I think 11 or 12 should be a fair and reasonable expectation. That being said, the bare minimum to me is 10 wins and make the playoffs and go from there. But I want to win the division. I want us to be in the parking lot together at MetLife in January, tailgating before the Jets' first home playoff game in 20-something years. That, to me, is the regular season goal for this team.
Last time the Jets have had home playoff games, they've done quite well, shockingly. I guess 98 and 2002. So I think I sit here kind of in June, and you start to think of what players could break out, what players, what groups you're concerned about, things like that. I'm going to do rapid fire here for the last about 5 minutes, and I want to just roll through with you some questions. Just give me your answer, and we'll roll to the next one. Player you expect to I'm going to start off with one negative. Player that has high expectations from the fan base, maybe the media, whatever it may be, that may not live up to them in 2024.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I'm going to go the opposite after. Don't worry.
Let me think. So, player that has high expectations that might not live up to. I'm trying to think. Is there an obvious one that I'm missing here? I mean, I feel like I mean, no one really expects anything from like Lazard, so that'd be easy.
There's one that we're not. There's one that I can think of that the expectations are so high now that I'm almost worried that if he just has a really good year, people are going to be like, "This wasn't that good." I think Brees is going to have an incredible year.
Brees, okay.
I also think that having the expectation that he's just going to have 2,000 all-purpose yards no matter what is like asking. If you're asking him to be like have one of the best running back seasons ever, I think he's going to be amazing. I think he's going to be a second team or first team All-Pro. Like, I think he's going to be that good. I also just think that like there's a chance he misses 1 or 2 weeks, or 1 or 2 weeks the Jets don't utilize him 35 times in one game, and then people are going to give him a hard time. The same way they gave him a hard time last year when he had a really awesome year, and it was like, oh, it wasn't that good. You know what I mean? Like I almost worry that the expectations now are like so insane that him having an awesome Pro Bowl level year is going to be looked at as a disappointment, which is absolutely fucking ridiculous.
Well, that's a good one too. Honestly, you could probably say Rodgers, because I think there's some fans who are like, he's going to go scorched earth, he's going to throw 40 touchdowns, when in reality, if they are a team that could win with Brees Hall and ball control and just relying on how good the defense is, like look at Aaron Rodgers' 2019 season where we're like, oh, is there signs of
slipping? 98. I was just looking at the stats. He had 29 touchdowns, 7 picks, 3,000 yards, 62, 63% completions. Like, that's a really good year. Is MVP Rodgers? No, it's still best season in Jets history.
They don't need MVP Rodgers to be really good. Like that would be like an average Aaron Rodgers. He's honestly below average in some of those categories there. But like I think especially early on, they should be a ground and pound style offense. Like, don't ask Aaron Rodgers to throw 40 plus times a game. Let him rely on this defense. Let him rely on the fact he's coming off this injury and can kind of be worked back into the offense without having to throw that many times. So I think maybe the eye test for Rodgers might tell more of the story than just the overall stats. That being said, I'm not going to be shocked if he's the MVP of the league, because I think he has that it factor about him where he hears everything that's been said the last 2 years now, and he's out to prove that he's still that guy. So I think it could go a couple ways for Aaron, assuming he's healthy, where like maybe the numbers aren't like MVP worthy, but he's still really good. Or it's like scorched earth, here we go. He's one of the best players in the league again. Brace is a good one just because the nature of his position, it's tough to stay healthy. He did last year coming off the injury, so I pray he could do it for a consecutive season and go out there and be the catalyst on offense for this team.
Who's one Jet who was not a Pro Bowler All-Pro last year that will be in Pro Bowler All-Pro this year?
I think Joe Tippmann's going to be the real deal. I think
interesting.
I've spoken to some people that have raved about Tippmann, and I think it's notable that Aaron, anytime he's done an interview and he's talked about the team, he always makes it a point of emphasis to bring up how high he is on Joe Tippmann, how smart he is. Rodgers has played with some pretty good centers, including a future Hall of Famer, like Hall of Fame level guy in Jeff Saturday. So that's notable to me when he talks about Tippmann. I think I don't know. Maybe it's the mullet with Tippmann, the swag, the fact that Nick Mangold was working with him during OTAs this year. I think Joe Tippmann is going to be a guy who will go from a guy who was solid as a rookie, obviously had to be thrusted in there at guard and then moved to center. I think now with a full year in this offense, Aaron back out there, the way Rodgers has seemingly taken Tippmann under his wing, I think Joe Tippmann's going to be the real deal, and he's the next great center for this team.
I'm going to go 2 guys because it's my show. I can cheat on this a little bit. I think Michael Carter and Garrett Wilson will both be at least Pro Bowlers, if not all pros this year. I think both guys could have been Pro Bowlers last year. I just think the Jets, obviously better quarterback play helps Garrett Wilson, takes him from the 1,200 yard guy with 3 or 4 touchdowns to 1,100 yards with 6 or 7 touchdowns, whatever it may be. And I just think Michael Carter, from his perspective, people throwing the ball more, against the Jets playing with a lead, him coming up with some of these interceptions, him and Sauce, it feels like the last 2 years, like could have had 12, 13 interceptions combined, and they've had like 3. So I think those are 2 guys that I look at, and I just think it's kind of a long overdue process with the 2 of them. Last 3 ones here. Which Jets coach are we going to be we're going to be complaining about the least by week 10? I know it seems like an obvious answer would be Ulbrich, but if the offense is good, maybe it's a different answer.
How about Brant Boyer, right? New
Ooh.
kickoff rules. Jets have some talented kickoff returners. In theory, they were able to bring back Morstead and Zerline. Are we gonna be giving a ton of love to Brant Boyer because the Jets are gonna be winning some of these games? It's the same way, like you look at the Chiefs and like their special teams coordinator is always getting lauded because you focus in on some of that stuff when you're always in national TV and you're winning. How about some love for Brant Boyer being the coach that we Jet fans are serenading with praise?
I will go. We'll give a bunch of Marquand Manuel praise because the safeties will play better than expected, and we won't worry about it. He'll end up leaving for a DC job, in a year. The last couple of fun ones here. Jets' first touchdown score of the year will be.
Ooh, that's a great one. Sauce Gardner pick 6.
Oh, wow.
Let's break the internet week 1.
Yeah, break Brock Purdy throwing Sauce a pick 6 would be exceptional. I'm going to go an absolutely ridiculous answer here. I'm going to go Jeremy Ruckert randomly scores the first touchdown of the year. And everyone's like gets extremely overly excited about Long Island's finest. I don't know why. I just feel like the Jets run like a pop pass inside the 5-yard line, like down 10-3 in the second quarter. And it's like, we'll clip this if this happens. There's about a 1% chance of that happening. The game of the year for the Jets, the most exciting game of the year will be like the Eagles-Bills level game of last year.
I think it's going to be the Bills again on that Monday night because, if the Jets lose week 1, I expect them to then win their next 4 and be 4-1 going into that Monday night showdown. I think it's like the first or second week of October against Buffalo.
Yeah, I think it's Columbus Day or whatever it's referred to now.
In the past, the Jets season would be over on that day, and instead they're going to be 4-1. Getting ready to claim the AFC East that night against the Buffalo Bills. So I can't wait to be there for that.
The game that will make you and the Asmaniacs have the biggest mental breakdown this year will be
if they lose to the Patriots. They play them twice in the first 10 games. That should be 2 gimmies, especially if they're, God forbid, they're 0-2 going into that home opener week 3, and it's a must-win. All the pressure's on. I think it'll be at least 1-1 going into that game, but they cannot lose to the Patriots. Like, there's definitely going to be a game they lose they're not supposed to. Every team has that, but it can't be the Patriot game. Like if it's Pittsburgh and Pittsburgh because you just got Mike Tomlin for a night, fine. Maybe Indy's a dark horse team. If Anthony Richardson's the real deal, that could be a tougher game than some people think. Maybe it's in Buffalo, but like the game that will make us go absolutely ballistic is if they somehow lose to this crappy ass Patriot team.
The game that makes Jake drink Henny at 9 a.m. in excitement will be the Bills game. Let's go with a different one because I feel like that one's kind of a given.
When they mollywomp the Miami Dolphins the last game of the year, and they're clinching the AFC East for the first time in 20 years.
Last one here. I'm trying to think of the best way to try to phrase this one. The game that the Jets are pulling a typical Jets and then figure it out. Because there's always one or two of these every year. We saw, again, the Bills and the Eagles game last year. We saw the Bills game the year before where they get down early. Pittsburgh game 2 years ago. And everyone's like, typical Jets, no show. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they pull a victory out of their ass. I'll rip one here, and I'll just say it feels like that Pittsburgh game, it'll happen again. Where like Sunday Night Football, we get all juiced up. The 6-1 Jets traveling to Pittsburgh to play the 4-3 Steelers or whatever. I don't know if the math even makes sense. I think it's week 8. And the Jets are down 14-3 in the first quarter. And it's like people have only watched Rodgers in 2 weeks. And they're like, this guy sucks. Everyone's freaking out. And then they end up winning the game in the last couple minutes with Breece Hall or Garrett Wilson touchdown. That's my answer. Finish us up here with something juicy, Jake.
Ooh, I love this question. I'm going to say it's early in the year. There's going to be some adversity early. Let's say they lose week 1.
If it's the Denver game, I will myself.
Tennessee. Short week on the road. We don't know what Will Levis is just yet. I could see that game.
Oh, we know what Will Levis is.
If
anyone caught that reference, that was a deep cut. So,
well, I'd like to say congrats on the sex to Will Levis.
Yeah, that's what I would like to say as well.
Yep. That's my official comment on that. Congrats on the sex. That said, I do think like we could be stressed for 3 quarters against Tennessee in week 2. Like they lose week 1, we're like, all right, well, it's a must win. You have Rodgers against Will Levis. Go win the game. and for whatever reason, it's the Titans home opener. I'm pretty sure it's ugly. It's this. It's that. And for whatever reason, it's a one-score game late in the fourth, and they got to find a way to pull away late. Like I could see that game being more stressful than it probably should be, but they find a way to get it done, and they're 1-1 going into the home opener 4 days later on Thursday Night Football.
Just thought of one more. I know I've said one more a couple times. The loudest crowd pop of the year at MetLife will be.
Cool.
I feel like last year, I know Rogers coming out of the tunnel is talked about enough a lot. I think the first crowd pop of the year, Breece Hall's first run, that or like the Garrett Wilson, one of the loudest I've ever heard MetLife. I actually think it was louder than Rogers. You couldn't hear. Anyone that was at that game knows like Method Man was like screaming so loud into the mic you couldn't even hear what was going on. Please,
the Breece
I
run,
love Method Man. Like maybe like let's just go with a traditional like just let the Videotron announce the players. It just sounds better. And just change up Thunderstruck. Great song, but again, makes me want to just like chug a beer and it's bad juju. Loudest crowd pop of the year for you will be.
I think it's something in that Patriot game. Whether it's the first touchdown or the first long Breece run again. Honestly,
first completion of Rogers' Jets career.
Just if it's a big if it's like a play action, they're taking a shot downfield, and Garrett or Mike Williams is coming down with a big play. That might be insane. Because I do agree with you being in the building last year for the home opener week 1. The Breece first carry of the game was one of the loudest pops. The 80-yard run he had, where if he had his conditioning ready, he would have scored easily. That was incredibly loud. And then the Garrett pop on one of the greatest catches I'll ever see live, maybe the best ever. That's right up there. So certainly any of those kind of moments replicated again a year later, but this time it's Rodgers out there being a part of it. I could see the crowd just being maybe not as loud, because I don't know if we would do that again, but certainly in that ballpark.
I will go. I will finish this up with it will be the Bills game. It will be a fourth quarter, third down sack or fourth down sack of Josh Allen that sends a lot of Bills fans home essentially quite upset and sends MetLife into an absolute frenzy. Deion Dawkins will be the one giving up the sack.
I love it.
It will be Hassan Reddick in some Dawn Japanese, some gear. He'll hit a nice one of these.
I can't wait to watch Reddick, man. I don't
Reddick's
think
awesome.
fans realize how good he is. I'm so
they
excited.
got a guy who's got fourth most sacks the last 5 years, and we haven't talked about it a single time other than his contract. Jake, obviously appreciate you taking some time. I know we covered a lot of random bullshit. That's what we do here during June. If you want to plug anything you got coming up, I know you guys had a big outing in Long Island with the Asmaniacs. Anything you got coming up, and obviously always appreciate you taking some time.
My pleasure, Will. So a couple things coming up. Working on a couple events this summer around the Jets training camp schedule. Do some meetups for all the Asmaniacs out there after some of these practices that are open to fans. And we will be we will be coming up with some specific locations for some watch parties as well. First one will hopefully be that Jet at Panther preseason game on August 17th. So if you're a Jet fan and wants to gather with your fellow Jet fans, keep that date open, and I'll hopefully have some more information on that coming up. Plus, if anyone's going to London, I'm hosting a kickoff party the day before the game. I think it's Saturday, October 5th is the date. So any Jet fan going to London, stay tuned for more information. We have the venue secured. We'll have more official details when we get closer, but can't wait to watch Aaron Rodgers versus either Sam Darnold or J.J. McCarthy across the pond, Will.
Yeah, it'll be a fun stretch there. Zach Wilson, Sam Darnold, back to back likely. Jake, appreciate you taking some time as always. I will be back on Saturday morning on the feed with John Jastrzemski of New York, and The Ringer, SNY. I know he's got a million different things going on. We are going to be doing some Jet stuff. We are also going to be doing ranking the best single seasons and teams in the last 30 years in New York sports. So, I'm going to do a 10-person, 10-team draft. He's going to do a 10-team draft. I can assure you I will be taking the 98 Jets or 98 Yankees at some point, hopefully the 98 Yankees first. But yeah, we will be going through that and got a bunch of stuff coming up. I'm going to be teasing on a film room with some tight end stuff coming up as well. Connor had a film room about Eric Sandpaper Watts on the feed today. I think there's probably a Buck the Trend in there somewhere. The Citizens of Football. Make sure you guys are tuned in, and we'll talk to you guys next week.